Minister, thanks a lot for talking to us. So, the year 2015, there was a lot about the Minsk process, and now we clearly understand it wouldn't end up by the end of the year. So, what are the next things to do? We know that the elections on the uncontrolled areas hadn't happened, and there is no really detailed discussion on that. There are also the issues on the Ukrainian votes on the decentralization laws and anything on the amendments to the constitution, which is a part of the Minsk Agreement. So what you would say on that, on which stage we are?
Minsk agreements are a sort of integral package and not a sort of a la carte menu in a restaurant. So everyone, literally everyone, but especially Russia, has to deliver on its commitments. And now it's a sort of one way for Ukraine delivering on our commitments, and Russia trying to inject a kind of creeping destabilization into Donbass and further use Donbass for destabilizing Ukraine. So it's again about lack of security and lack of real and sustainable ceasefire, no progress on humanitarian track, and because of that, a sort of very slow progress on political track.
At the same time, there are talks about what depends on Ukraine. So we're speaking now about this decentralization package, and that would be also considered like something that probably Ukraine is not moving forward that fast.
Decentralization package is, of course, an important bit of Minsk. In this sense, there is a clear reference to the special order law about the specificities of local government in the constitution. So the whole bit of constitutional changes will effectively work, but will work only after free and fair elections in Donbass. So, but of course, our parliamentarians talking about the whole bit of constitutional changes are really afraid of a lack of progress by the Russian side. And it's exactly a hampering point there.
Currently, we have a lot of talks about the, probably less than could be about Crimea, but about the energy blockade also by the Ukrainian activists. We know the Ukrainian position, Ukraine consider, and the Crimea is occupied by Russia, it's annexed, but there is no clear also position on, Ukrainian position on Crimea on the future. You know, what is the Ukrainian discussion on Crimea? Is it discussed together with Minsk? What are the conditions? What is the discussion with Moscow on Crimea?
Minsk is focused on Donbass. The whole idea about Normandy format is about de-escalation and stabilization of Donbass. We have now clear and comprehensive solidarity for non-recognition policy towards Crimea by the European Union, by all our friends, and the whole package of sanctions related to such non-recognition policy. We had a number of very clear statements from everyone about non-recognizing temporary occupation of the Crimea by Russia. Secondly, it's about human rights violation in the Crimea, and we need to further engage international organizations and to try to set up the mechanism for international monitoring for human rights violations. And of course, there is a third track of different kind of cases, both by separate Ukrainian companies and by Ukraine herself, in challenging these temporary occupations. And of course, these three tracks will be followed further.
We have at least 11 Ukrainian citizens who are imprisoned in Russia. Are there any talks about their possible exchange?
We've been trying to help
especially when we have the Russian officers here in Ukraine?
Yes, of course. The issue of exchange is, of course, political and moral issue. What we have now in Russia is a full lack of responsibility and especially rule of law in the Russian justice system. And we've been trying to get together the support of the European Union, of all civilized world, for being present in these court cases, for having continuous pressure and very active pressure on Russia in getting progress on that. But any kind of effective discussion about exchanges should be done on the basis of real legal procedures. But at the moment, the Russian side is not willing to talk about that, and we will be further working with every one of our partners in gaining more pressure on Russia in the sense of releasing all of 11 hostages and political prisoners in Russia. And of course not to forget Crimean Tatars who are now in prisons on the occupied territory in the Crimea.
There is this interesting, let's say, and very complicated relations, if we can say, with Russia. We have somehow an open war, and if we speak about the Donbass, we have an occupied territories. At the same time, you're going to talk on the with the Russian Minister for the Economic Development on the Ukrainian trade with Russia. At the same time, we have a very interesting situation when the Ukrainian Prime Minister said that the whole Ukraine wouldn't give back. There is a moratorium for the Ukrainian debt to Russia. So how it all goes together, and what is the issue for the talks with the Russian economy?
It's not negotiations. We are talking about consultations. This trilateral format. It's actually a part of Minsk. Remember this political statement by all leaders. I am very skeptical about any kind of results in the nearest future at the backdrop of the decree now by the Russian president about introducing most favored nation regime in trade with Ukraine. We believe that such decree runs completely counter to any kind of legally binding commitment, including Vienna Convention by Russia. The reason for such trilateral talks is to find possible solutions for Russian concerns. We don't believe that such concerns are justified, not in any way. So far, we have not got any proof for these concerns, but in the sense of having this space for trade, it would be important to ensure that this trade could be further developed. Now, on the backdrop of present situation, we will focus on our opportunities within the free trade area with the European Union.
The final one, definitely it's very hard to accept, and you're a diplomat, but there is a level of fatigue, Ukrainian fatigue in the West. It's a bit too much, it's a bit too long, and they do not see that much progress. With fighting corruption, if you really talk to experts and the politicians and some public opinion leaders, so what is your answer to that? And really, there is some idea that Ukraine is always, complaining, like the West should help Ukraine with funding, with that, but the progress in all the other issues are not that fast as people want. As well, within these recent weeks, you see a lot of issues within the coalition. The people are again talking about the inside quarrels between the different political groups, which are hindering Ukraine from moving forward. So what is your answer on that, and what actually Ukraine is proposing to its partners rather than just complaining, begging help, asking for help?
I would not rather talk about a kind of fatigue. I would say there are a lot of priorities in the current developments, including Middle East and other pressing issues. So all of politicians have a kind of limited working day of around 8, 12 or 16 hours, but definitely not more. What our friends and partners are waiting from us is transforming the country from basically post-Soviet reality into different reality which could be part of European project. And of course, what we need from them is not just solidarity, but also engagement. Many of them keep saying, look, you should do more, and after that we will help you. It's also a sort of approach I'm not extremely eager about. But what is critical is to deliver of what we can here in Ukraine. And the critical part of that is, for me, tackling corruption, good governance, and of course the whole reshuffling of rule of law. And it's the absolute basis for what should be done, and our partners are ready and eager to help us on that.
Thank you.
Thanks.